Exodus 7, let's call this one self-destructive. Because as we've seen in previous chapters, God has predicted that Pharaoh will harden his heart through the plagues that God is about to send on Egypt. And what we begin to see in chapter 7 is not only the fact that Pharaoh is going to harden his heart, but an interesting way in which he does it that's uniquely self-destructive. See, as God begins to bring the plagues, he's going to introduce them with the same staff that he instructed Moses to take out of his interaction with Moses in the wilderness. And if Pharaoh doesn't believe Moses, God is going to tell him, cast down your staff, it's going to become a serpent. Well, Pharaoh's magicians have skills too, and they are going to cast down their staffs. Their staffs are also going to turn to serpents, but Pharaoh's going to blow past the red flag when God is going to make the staff that Moses threw down consume the staffs of the magicians. And that would be a sign to most folks, but I think we can all relate to times when, even though the signs are right there in front of us, we just don't get it because we don't want to. And that's what's going on with Pharaoh. He could see it, but he didn't want to see it. And it's probably not for me to judge him, but we can learn from the fact that it's going to happen again, because when the plagues actually begin, God is going to send Moses with that same staff to turn the waters in Egypt to blood. And once again, Pharaoh's got magicians and they've got skills. They're going to turn waters to blood too. And it's not until they get to the third plague that the magicians that Pharaoh sends aren't going to be able to repeat what God is doing through Moses. But understand what Pharaoh's doing. See, he's got magicians, but instead of having those magicians actually remedy what's going on with the plagues, he's simply repeating them. And they're plagues. And so what he's actually doing is causing himself more damage simply to be defiant. And how many times is that the lesson for us? See, it's not about judging Pharaoh once again. As we often talk about here, we tend to learn more when we remove ourselves from the seat of the heroes in these stories. Understand that these are all flawed people. But we try to find the most heroic character we can and compare ourselves to that. It's probably natural. But we learn more when we understand the ways in which we can also be similar to the people who aren't quite as sympathetic in these stories. And how many times in life have I been so defiant in possibly even blowing past a red flag I asked God to send me, hurting myself just to get what I want, even when I'm pretending I want to hear from God. And so maybe that's the lesson for us. There are times when we could look to the fact that our power is absolutely, clearly limited in a certain situation and simply choose to go the other way. Or we can choose to, in desperation, thirst as we call it now, be so desperate to get what we want that we will take an even more self-destructive path in either waiting to get what we want or simply pushing through to get our way, rather than simply understanding that, look, if it was for us, it's clearly within God's power for us to have it. And so ultimately, when we see Pharaoh, we see a warning sign for us all to understand ways in which not only can we pray to God for discernment, but to not be so determined that we actually become self-destructive in trying to prove our point. God's best to you as you go forward in him, though.